Hello and welcome to our first tutorial for Autodesk Inventor. When I say our first tutorial, that is actually going to be tutorial 2. The first chapter actually just kind of walks you through some setup and stuff like that, which I'm going to let you read independently on your own. Let's go ahead and get started with this. Now, you should have went through this tutorial already. You should have read through the book. It's going to go through some other things like orbit, and it's going to talk about some different ways of changing your views up here that I want you to get from the book. Really, these videos are mainly to show you how to create the part. So, let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to be flipping through the book here because we don't have a single drawing that shows what our part looks like. Essentially, it kind of just goes through it in steps. So I have two or three steps that I have to flip to get to the correct dimensions and stuff to create this part. But the first step that we're going to do is we're going to create this L shape. So I'm going to go ahead and select my XY plane. Well, first I'm going to hit Sketch. Then I'm going to select my XY plane to start a sketch on. And I'm just going to do a rough sketch here. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start up here, come down, over, up. And I'm just making sure I'm doing 90-degree angles, but essentially it's a rough sketch. I'm not worrying about getting it to size or anything like that. The way I'm going to get it to size is I'm actually going to create dimensions. So I'm going to hit my Dimension tab. And I'm going to do 2.5. Same thing for this one. Okay, you can see I still have my rough shape, but it's a little goofy now because now I've actually changed the size of these. So what I need to do is I need to fully constrain this. And when I say fully constrain it, I mean really I want this all to be purple. And fully constraining means that I can't take this and drag anything. Essentially, it is locked. It is parametrically locked. In other words, parametric means parameter. So this is parameter-driven engineering drawings. So what we're doing is by parameter, that means dimensioned, essentially. Dimensioned or constrained using something like this. Coincidence, parallel constraints, things like that. So what I can do here is these are 0.75 each wall. So I'm going to hit 0.75. And if I do this one, it should be completely constrained. You can see there, the whole thing went purple. Now, if I delete that, let me get rid of that dimension. You'll notice down here in the lower right-hand corner, you'll see one dimension needed. That's where you know if it's fully constrained or not. Or if you see, obviously, a blue line, and them colors depend upon how you have yours set up. So if I go and add that dimension again, okay, so now it says fully constrained. So it's very important. That is something that I grade based on. I take points off for every constraint you're missing. So make sure all of your sketches are fully constrained. All right, with our sketch fully constrained, we can now finish this sketch and we can extrude this. So I'm going to go ahead up to the extrude, and I am going to extrude this 2.5. Hit enter, and there is my extruded L shape or angle. All right, so let's move forward here. I just need to find, here we go. Okay, so we're going to create basically the same thing off of this top. All right, so to get our sketch on that top, what I'm going to do is hit Sketch, and I'm going to select that top face. And it's going to allow me, it's going to orient my part so that I can create that sketch easily. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to start in this corner here. And I'm just going to, again, draw the rough shape. All right. So I'm going to hit 2.5 for this one. And you can see I'm going through this a little faster now because it's basically the same steps. You see this here? I can drag this a little bit if I want to, just to kind of make it look close. But you don't need to do that. All you really need to do is just add these dimensions in. 0.75. And there we go. Okay. Also, I need to close this. All right, so one of the things I'm going to do, see how this is not locked there? That one is. So I'm going to click here and click there. And there we go. All right, so I'm going to finish that sketch and I'm going to extrude that. And you can see now, excuse me, that this is going the wrong direction. So over here in my extrude, I have the ability to flip these. So I'm just going to hit the flip button. Here's where I enter my distance, or I could enter it here. This is actually a symmetric bidirectional. Now, if you do symmetric, it is only going to do a total of 2.5 inches. It will not go 2.5 inches either way. And then there's also what we call asymmetric, which we can control each distance independently by distance A and B. So there's a couple different ways to extrude these things. We're going to do this here flipped, and we're going to extrude it down 2.5 inches. And that looks pretty good. Through all just means that basically if you're going to cut it, it will go through all. 2, this, I can actually select a face. So in this case, I would select this face, and it will extrude it to that distance. That's really handy if you don't know what distance you need to extrude it. Let me pull this out a little bit more. 2 next. So if I select 2 next, basically it's going to go to the next surface. If I was doing a cut, unfortunately there's nothing that it actually collides with, so in this case 2 next won't work. So I'm just going to go 2, and I'll do this next face. So I'll do it like that. I could also just enter the 2.5 in, and that would be fine too, because I know what it is. This is how you do a cut. We'll do one of those in a couple minutes. And intersection just keeps whatever intersects. And I'll give an example of that here in a minute as well. I'm going to hit check. All right, so there is our part, as you can see. Okay, so let's move on and let's create a hole. It looks like we're creating a 3/4 inch hole. So I have 2 ways I can do this. I can either use this hole command, which we'll learn later, or I could do a sketch. Click on here, and I'm just going to place this anywhere. Actually, while I have this open, I usually enter the size of the hole, or circle, if you will. And this is 1.25 in from the end, and it is 0.75 from this end. 0.75, and I'm fully constrained. So I want to make sure everything is fully constrained, of course. I want to make sure, or always make sure that everything's fully constrained. I'm going to hit check, and now I'm going to extrude this. Okay, so you can see there, this is extruding like a pin, or a boss sticking up out of here. What I want to do is I actually want to hit cut. And it knows right away that it wants to cut through it, because obviously it can't cut anything if it was going up. So it automatically changed the direction of it as well, just because it knew. I can hit through all, and then it will just go through every solid that is below it in this case, or above it for that matter. So it'll go through everything. I could do 2 next, which, oh sorry, this is just 2. So I'd click this face. Or I can do 2 next, which it knows that it's just going to the next face that it would come through. So if I do, let me see here, 2.0, just to show you the difference. So right now it's going to 2.0. If I do 2 next, it automatically knows that it's going to this next surface, so it automatically adjusts for that. So I just do through all usually, and hit check. Okay, so and lastly, we just need to put a little chamfer on this corner. By the way, to do this orbit, in case it doesn't mention that exactly, I hold shift down and then hold down my roller, and I can orbit around. If I don't hold down the roller, it just pans. So it just pans around if I don't hold down shift. Okay, so man, really having trouble speaking today. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start a sketch. I'm going to start on this face, and I'm just going to draw a triangle here. So I'm just going to start a random triangle. Oops. Okay. And the size of that triangle, I've got to find it here. It looks like it's 1 inch by 45 degrees. So we're just going to make this, whoops. I'm not sure what that is doing there. Okay, so we're going to make this 1.0. And let's make this 45. Okay, and we're fully constrained. I'm going to delete that. All right. So there we go. And the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make this coincident to there. Okay, it is. All right. So we are fully constrained. I'm going to hit finish, and I'm going to extrude that. And we're going to do a cut. Now, notice if I do through all, it goes through everything. So this is an example where you don't want to go through all. This is a really good example of where you want to go to and then select this, or you just do to next, which will only go through here and it'll just go up to that face. So to next works just fine. And I'm going to hit OK, and there is my finished piece. So I believe that is all for this particular, yes. So that's all for this particular tutorial. As always, if you have questions, feel free to... Oh, you know what? One thing quick. So I always label, and this is something I'm going to be requiring you to do for all of your tutorials. I would like you to label, rename all of your extrusions so we know what they are. Just your operations. You don't have to name all your sketches, just your operations. So in this case, I'm going to call this one first angle. Oops, I accidentally double clicked, which allows me to edit it. Second angle, and we'll call this 0.75 whole. And the name just has to make sense, right? It should describe it. And let's put this as chamfer. There we go. So that looks good. And again, if I go through all these, just double check and make sure I have them constrained. If I hover over it, double click. Oh, okay, there we go. Now it's saying it. So if you hover over these, you actually have to have your mouse over top of this little drawing thing. I was trying to hover over here. I was wondering why it wasn't coming up. It'll actually tell you if it's fully constrained. Okay, so here you can see it didn't come up. So that one's suspect. Okay, so there. I need one dimension. So what I'm going to do there, cancel. Let me see here. Okay, so there we go. Now we're fully constrained. I'm going to hit finish. And now when I hover over this, fully constrained. Okay, so now that we're all fully constrained, that looks good. So this would be 100%. The part is made correctly. I've named all of my operations, and I've also made sure that all of my sketches are fully constrained. So that looks good. Okay. All right, so again, as always, if you have questions, feel free to ask me during my office hours or, of course, during class.